If I can interrupt for 1 second. When you were mentioning about Dick the Bruiser terrorizing and taking liberties with people, especially like New York Raymond, he also did that with Bobby Heenan.
That's right.
Bobby Heenan, before he started his manager career, he was selling Cokes, popcorn, taking the ring jackets and everything back to the dressing room for Dick the Bruiser, and Bobby Heenan, related to me some awful stories how, Bruiser would slap him around for, and he's only like a 12, 13-year-old kid at the time.
Yeah. And I always had heard later in life that Bobby didn't have good things to say about Dick the Bruiser. And given the success that Bobby Heenan achieved as a manager with Bruiser, I always wondered why, but that was pretty much it.
Well, just on the Bobby Heenan front, if I can relate this story to
Tell us a Heenan
wrestling
story.
fans. I got my one favorite Bobby Heenan story. Back in I think this would have been in the 90s at some point, Bobby came down with throat cancer. I knew he smoked a lot of cigars at when I saw him when I was a younger fan of his. But he came down with throat cancer and he ended up going into the hospital. So at the time, this was in Atlanta. I mean, that's when he was working for WCW and TBS. And I was going down to visit friends in Georgia. And I said, I should really go see, my friend Bobby in the hospital. So I did. I found out what hospital he was in. And I show up at the hospital one day, and his wife and one of his daughters are there. And I came and I said, can I see Bobby? And they go, well, look, and he's in his room and he's just completely out of it.
Had he had surgery at that point?
Yes, and it's like, oh, I just felt so bad, and just if I can just see my friend for a couple seconds.
Because they took like half his face eventually, right?
Eventually,
The
yeah.
jaw.
But at this point, the very first thing, they took off part of his tongue.
Ooh.
So that's when he started speaking with a lisp once he recovered and things. So anyway, his wife says, well, you can only go for a couple minutes. So as she takes me into the room, and we're at Bobby's bedside, and he's just laying there, just, semi, I would think unconscious. So she leans down and says to Bobby, Bobby, Dave Drayson's here to see you. And it's like no response. So she says, here, give me your hand. So she takes Bobby's hand and puts my finger in the palm of his hand.
Uh-oh.
So it's like, I don't, what can I say to my friend at this point? And I go, WWBD, like what would Bobby do? So I lean down to Bobby with my finger in his hand. I go, Bobby, that's not my finger. So
did you get a reaction?
Oh, I felt the little squeeze on that finger. There was no doubt about that. So he knew that I was there. And
why, you humanoid, you?
Yeah. To have him, call me anything at that point would have been just, the joy of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.